The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Whether she's walking the red carpet or doing interviews, you'll find her with celebrities and all the latest news. She's here, she's there, she's everywhere, she's always on the go. So sit back, relax, and get ready. This is the Corey Taylor Talks Show.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Corey Taylor Talks live from Las Vegas, the #1 teen talk show. Today's going to be a really awesome show because I have the fabulous Darian Hickey with me. So hi Darian, how are you?
Good, how are you, Corey?
I am great, and you are so cool and like
Thank you.
tough and like awesome. What you do is amazing, and I wish I could do what you do. I never could. The dirt alone is, I couldn't do that stuff. So you are like my hero.
Thank you. It means a lot to me.
So, for some of the people that don't know, why don't you introduce yourself and tell people about what you do?
Okay, so I've always been around the sport of motocross because growing up, my dad used to race back in the day. And so when I was around 6 years old or so, he got my brother into racing, and so we would, him and my dad, they would go back out in the backyard where we live. It's just a big desert lot, and they would go riding, and one day I finally was like, you know what, I kind of want to try and see how this is, like, what is this? Like,
Right.
I want to see what goes on. So I finally got, my dad, he bought me a little 50, a Honda 50, and so I'd putt up and down the street on it until we finally would go out to the desert, and I'd just kind of cruise on the open roads on that. And then I finally got an 80, so a little bit bigger bike than that, and I was basically doing the same thing. So I would go out and ride in the desert on the weekends with my dad and my brother, and so I'd kind of tag along. And I always remember there would be times where, since my dad raced back in the day, him and my brother would just kind of take off, and I'd just be kind of like cruising around, and I'd notice, I'd kind of look around, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where'd they go? And it was kind of like a little bit of a nerve-wracking feeling being out there alone. But then I got over that, and I eventually got a bigger bike, so I went from a 50 to an 80 all the way up to a 250, which is a pretty big bike for a little girl. I'm only 5'2", so I eventually moved on to that, and I was still kind of cruising out in the desert. And then about 12 years ago, out in Sandy Valley, Nevada, we were volunteering at a horse rescue, Shiloh Horse Rescue, and there was a motocross track out there, and I remember always going over and looking over the fence and like kind of like hearing the bikes out there,
Right.
and I would look and you could kind of faintly see like the bikes kind of jumping up and down, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool, like I want to see what this is about.
Right.
So we finally drove out there one day and we took a look at it, and one day we made our weekend out there, and we went to the track and I started riding, and it was just history from there. I just fell in love. It was like love at first sight. It was one of the most funnest things I've ever done, and so ever since then I've been pretty much hooked on it. So I made the transition kind of from desert I started out in the desert, and then I moved my way over to the motocross tracks. So that's basically where they do all the jumps and some freestyle and stuff like that. So that's pretty much how I started out. So
Gotcha. Well, that's really cool. Now, are there like a lot of girls in it, or because I gotta be honest, I'm not gonna like pretend like I know a lot about this sport.
Yeah.
I don't. I've seen a Disney movie about it.
oh, motocross.
Yes.
That is one of my favorite movies. I actually watched it not too long ago, and it makes me happy watching it every time. So
So is it like that, like harsh against girls and stuff?
To me, because I'm a little bit different than how other girls are, I'm more of a tomboy, so what people say doesn't really offend me as much. But in some certain circumstances, it can be. It just depends on who you're talking to.
Really?
But a lot of it now is just that women don't get as much exposure as the men do in the sport, and I think it comes down to the money in it. We're just not treated the same. So a lot of it's that. But it depends on if you're doing it for fun or if you're doing it to try to make your life out of it, make money for it, and it's a little bit harder for the women to do it. So
yeah, that's interesting. And I know I think like in like car racing and stuff and like NASCAR, I think like it's probably a little bit easier because I think like I'm not gonna pretend like I'm this racing expert, but it seems like there's more girls in it becoming involved and stuff. So do you find that with yours and it's getting better? Or
it's actually been hard. When I first started riding, I was just racing locally at my local tracks, which is Sandy Valley. They're closed down now, but then we have Mesquite MX out in Mesquite, Nevada, about an hour from here. But growing up locally, I really only raced. It was kind of like a hit and miss when you'd go and race. Like when I first started, there was only a few girls that I consistently rode with all the time. And ever since, as the years have gone on, so the motocross, it's kind of died down a lot because of the way it is in the industry. And where we live, there's not many tracks anymore because my hometown track, they closed down. So now we only have one. So the other place to really travel and expand to is California. That's one of the main places where you want to go if you want to make it somewhere. But now I recently switched over to, I guess you could say it's desert. It's kind of half motocross, half desert. And there's actually a lot. This is the most girls I've ever raced against. Right now in my series we have 19 girls, but not all 19 of them race at the same time. It's, like I said, it's kind of a hit and miss type of deal.
Right.
But when I raced locally, I'd be racing against, it would be like me and 3 other girls. So it really, and for me, I like to have fun while doing it, so I feel like it's more fun when there's tons of other girls, or when you show up at a race and there's girls that you've never seen before. It just makes it that much more fun, because I remember when I used to race locally, it's like kind of like you'd go and you'd race and you'd know where you would place every time. And so it was just kind of the same repetitive type thing. So it was nice to actually show up somewhere where you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's what it is with the series that I'm doing now. It's the Works Off-Road Racing series. And every track that I go to, there's a different girl that I race against, which I really, really like, because it just makes it that much more fun of the sport. So
now, like, of course, like you said, you had a brother and stuff, and he started kind of doing it first. And so would you find, like, your parents were kind of, like, scared for you to, because, like, you know, I'm sure you're their little girl and everything, so was it scary for them?
Well, for me, I've always been a daddy's girl, and my brother, he's been a mama's boy. So me and my dad were kind of the same type of person, and so I think exactly how he does. And I'm not, like I said, I'm that tomboy type girl, so I'm ready for it. Like, I want to jump into it. And he has that same type of attitude, so he's there supporting me, behind me 100%, just as well as my mom is. But it's funny because I'll see my mom at the races, and I can tell that she gets nervous.
Oh my gosh.
Just because, you know, I think it's different when you think of, oh, that's my little boy, well, that's my little girl, you know? It's kind of different when you think about it, and I think that's the way that she looks at it. Oh, that's my little girl, she needs to be careful, you know? Okay. And my dad thinks the same way, but in a different way. It's different because I've been doing it for so long, and he experienced it back in his day. So my mom never really had that background except for when my dad used to race. So it's kind of more nerve-wracking for her to see me go out there, and especially with all the injuries that I've had, it's just that much more scary. So
so you had a lot of injuries?
I have. It's been pretty rough for me. I'm actually on a pretty good streak right now, which is like, thank Lord.
Let's not. I was knock on wood. This is what.
I've broken way too many bones, and
good Lord, I couldn't.
So yeah, I started out my first one. I went to go try to do a different race in California. It was, I believe it was called the WMN Racing, and it was one of my first races that I was actually really excited for. That was like a kind of a big women's race, and kind of somewhere for me to go and try something new and ride with different girls. And I was in practice, and I was just trying to get the feel of the track, and I went up a jump, and I couldn't really see how far it went. And for me, when I ride, I love to jump things, so I kind of just take that risk and I go for it. I'm like that daredevil. So I just went for it, and the jump, it actually went up more than I thought it did, and I ended up hitting super hard. We call it casing, and I like bounced off the bike and landed on my side, and I broke my wrist. So I ended up not being able to race, and I found out that I did break my wrist, and it was almost close to the growth plate, which is not good. So that happened, and then all of this was all in the same kind of time frame. Within the past 3 years of my life, it's just kind of been broken, surgery. So I was kind of on that streak where it was like really rough for me, especially while being in school, because I write with my right hand, and so I've broken both my wrists. I've broken my right arm 3 times, and last February I broke my collarbone. So it's been pretty rough, but I'm happy that I'm finally on that stable streak where I'm doing okay. So, but it's always a good time.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I mean, I would like completely stop, because when I think I was 2, I broke my arm, and it did hit the growth plate, and my arm's still not like completely straight.
Yeah, I constantly have pain all the time, and I think I forever will. One of the races that we recently just had, I got taken out I crashed pretty bad, and it hit my bad arm, because right now I have a plate and 6 screws in it. So I have some metal in me, and I think it's pretty awesome. I love all my battle scars. And so ever since I had that impact, it's just hurt in a different way. And every time, like, I'll sit in class in school, and I'll like turn my wrist, and it just cracks and grinds, and I'm like, oh, that feels wonderful. I just love it, you know? So I think I might have to go get myself checked out after this series, because it gets uncomfortable, and I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing to myself? But I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love the sport that I do, and I've met so many awesome people along with it, and it's just the bond that I have with my dad and my parents with it, and my brother, it just makes it all that much better, because it's a strong thing. So, and it makes life great. So.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, that is that's a really important thing, and a really cool thing that your parents do support you and stuff. And my mom's really supportive of everything I do, but I don't think she would ever in a million years let me do that. I couldn't do it myself. Yeah. So, and like, I know, even just watching like cars racing, which seems a lot more safe, because you know you're in a big giant
roll cage.
I can't even watch it. I cringe the whole time. So like, I can't. Oh my goodness, that is terrifying to me.
It's funny too, because I used to think, like, when I was younger, I was like, oh, as a career, you know, I thought, like, because back when I was younger, my dad and I, we used to kind of go to NASCAR a lot, and I remember growing up, and we would watch NASCAR, like, on every Saturday or Sunday whenever it came on, and I just remember him, like, always standing in front of the screen, just screaming at it, and those were just, I remember those times, and, like, they were good times, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. And I used to think, man, I really want to, like, be a NASCAR racer, like, be a Danica Patrick or something like that. Like, I love that. But then, like, now with the sport that I do, those series, they also do quads and side-by-sides. So the side-by-sides are kind of like, you could kind of sort of relate it to NASCAR, like, that's the closest thing you're going to get to it. But now that I watch them like an actual person, I'm kind of like, yeah, that would be cool, but it bores me. I like to be on 2 wheels. Like,
Gotcha.
I think it's just a little bit different. Like, I feel like it's more of a challenge to be on 2 wheels rather than 4.
Oh, for sure.
But I feel like sometimes I think about it while watching them. I'm like, man, if I was on 4 wheels, I would just stay pinned. Just my foot would never come off that gas pedal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you don't think you'll ever get into like car racing and stuff then?
It's really, I think maybe down the road if something happened. But it's a really expensive sport.
Yeah,
very expensive.
I can imagine.
Some of my friends, they race the side-by-sides, and it seems like it would frustrate me, because every time they come off the track or they come off practice, something's broke. And replacing a part on those things is not ideal. It's not ideal. So it's a lot different from replacing a part on a motorcycle than a side-by-side. So it's a lot. There's a big difference.
So do you work on your own bike and stuff, or do you like have a team, or like how does that work?
So my dad and my brother, they have taught me over the years how to do the basic stuff. And when it comes to things that need to be done, I like to learn for myself. I don't really like people doing it for me.
Right.
I'm an independent person, and I like to learn how to do it. So if it comes to something where I need to fix it, I'll go to my dad and I'll ask him, I'm like, hey, can you show me how to do this so I can learn how to do it for when it happens again? So he'll kind of guide me, but when it comes to the races and practice, I prep my bike by myself.
Oh, wow.
And do that. And then I also have my mechanic. He's been with me for about 5 years now, and he's like a blessing to me because he's one of the best. So Tony Berluti, he's been really good to me over the years. And I just took my bike in there, and there was a big issue with it, and I'm glad that I took it because it could be really dangerous for me if I didn't get it looked at. So.
See, that, I think that would scare me too. So, do you still get scared, or you just, because you seem like so like tough and cool, like every single time, even like I sprained my ankle one time, I cried like a baby, and like I almost passed out. It was horrifying. So like for you to just be like, oh, I broke a wrist, that's fine, I'll go again like later. I mean, do you still get scared? I
think the only fear that I do have, I wouldn't have to say that I have fears, because I love to go out there and I'm a daredevil. Like, I've always been raised that if something happens and you don't like it, you need to get back on there and try it again. Right. So if something ever happens, I swing my leg back over that bike and I keep going. Like, I always kind of think that in my head. If something really bad goes on during my race, I'm like, I have that always in my head. Okay, I need to keep going. I need to put myself together and just not give up. You know, for me, through anything, I don't like to give up on anything. Once I start it, it's got to be finished. So coming into the whole fear thing, I think the only fear that I do have is there's the place where I broke mainly all my bones. It's Mesquite Motocross track. And I think I do have a little bit of a fear going there sometimes, just because you can kind of, once you crash, I think it's different from a racer's perspective than someone who's a spectator. Once you crash, you kind of vision in your head, vision what goes on in your head, what happened. Mm-hmm. So the next time you go, you kind of think that again before you go over something. Like for say when for some reason I always crash in the whip sections, so it's the ones that go like this. And sometimes like I'll think of it when I go over it. I'm like, okay, I need to go over this right, because for sometimes I'll like play back in my head, okay, like like you can replay the feeling of like before it happened. Oh yeah. And it's kind of scary, because I mean, you don't want that to happen again. So kind of replaying those visions in your head, it kind of gets in the way. And while going there, I think I mind game myself a lot, and I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think it's necessarily fear. I think it's just mind games, because I don't want that to happen again, because I can't really afford. I can't afford to get hurt right now. So I think
you don't want to break a bone.
No,
if you want to, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Like I said, when I recently just injured my arm again at the one race, I was really scared, to be honest, because I'm in school, I have a job, and I need to write with my arm every single day. And I remember back when I was in high school, we had the proficiency tests, and I was in a cast, and I was not able to write whatsoever. Oh, no. So I missed those, and I had to make them up, and that was something that really affected me. And it was just scary, to be honest, and to not be able to do what you do regularly, it's a scary thought to think of. So while doing it, I try to ride as cautious as I can, but ride as best as I can. Yeah. So it's just plays out like that. I mean, I don't really have any fears or regrets or anything like that, so.
Yeah, my one friend, he was actually a football player, and he had a concussion and was like in the hospital during the proficiencies. So it was really bad, and he missed everything, and he had to make it up again, and it's a tough thing. So I mean, not to be able to write. Yeah, that'd be horrible.
It was a struggle. But yeah, I've had many, now that you mention that, I've had many concussions, and those aren't fun either. I don't even think I can count how many helmets I've been through, because they say once you hit your head really hard in a helmet, you're supposed to get rid of that helmet, because if you open it up and you take all the padding out, there'll be stress cracks in it. And once they say once you hit your head in it and you keep wearing it and you hit your head in it again, it's not going to have the same safety features as it did before.
Interesting, yeah.
So.
Well, I never realized how concussions actually worked, I guess, but the movie Concussion was, insane to me. It was a great movie, by the way, but, I didn't understand that's, what actually happened to you, and, I didn't know it had, a long-term effect, and, that was terrible.
It's funny. I'll joke with my friends sometime at school, because my best friend, Jody, she races with me as well. We've both grown up racing. I got her into racing. And it's funny, 'cause she'll say something to me, something we did, a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh, I don't remember that. She's like, how do you not remember that? I'm like, oh, I hit my head too many times. I've had too many concussions. I don't remember anything. And it's weird, too, because I remember sometimes, because I know the football players, they have a lot of, these effects and stuff. Sometimes, I remember when I was back in middle school, I remember, because when the start of the year, you have your new schedule, and you have to, remember their classes and stuff. And there was one time I walked in there, and I absolutely had no clue where I was going. I couldn't even think of where I was going. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that's happened to me a couple times where I'll try to think of something and I truly don't remember what it is, but I know that I know it, but I just can't think of it. It's I feel kind of stupid at times, but I mean, it's rough. And I put myself through a lot of damage, but I mean, it's worth it if you have the passion, the love, and the heart for it. So.
No, for sure, and that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
But we are actually going to take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about, because like you said, you are also going to school and you're working, and so balancing that out with it. So we'll talk about all that, because that's really a cool thing, and I think a lot of people can learn from you. So
yeah, awesome.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with more Darian, so stick around. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Corey Taylor Talks, live from Las Vegas, the #1 teen talk show. Once again, we have Darian Hickey with us, and so I said before the commercial break, we want to talk more about how you balance everything out and stuff, because I know it's very difficult for me, so I understand it's a hard thing to do. So how do you balance out your normal life and work and school with motocross?
Well, I mean, I guess it kind of works out for me because I'm really OCD. So for me, my brain, it's kind of I have to plan everything out. It's just a weird thing that I have. So basically my schedule goes, I work part-time and I go to school full-time at UNLV. And then I race and practice on the weekends. I don't really have time to go during the week to ride. I really wish that I could, but life gets in the way sometimes. Okay. So basically, on Mondays I go to work, Tuesdays I go to school all day, and it just kind of flip-flops like that. And it ends up working out, and sometimes on the weekends, with the way school is, I have homework that's due on the weekends, unfortunately.
That sucks.
So what I have to do is I have to look ahead at my schedule, and I have to finish all that homework before I do anything, because honestly, school is really important to me, and that's something that really comes first. So I have to look ahead and know that I have to get all that finished before it's due, because I won't be here to finish it. Like when I have races where I go out of town, I have to get all my work together. I'll make a little calendar list type thing, and I'll mark everything off that I have to do. And it just works out that way. I mean, it's not too bad. Sometimes it gets stressful trying to balance everything, because sometimes I feel like I don't have enough time.
Oh yeah.
And I don't like to stay up all night, because I do like to get my sleep, because I like to be functional the next day. So, I don't know. I mean, it just kind of plays out. And if something doesn't work out, I'll just try to find a less stressful way to do it. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And it's very difficult to balance it and stuff, but I think that's cool that because it is your passion, you do make it a priority. And but you also do put school first too, which is very important as well.
Yeah.
So what type of a degree are you going for then?
Right now I am going for a business accounting degree. and I think I'm going to switch it over to marketing because I just feel like that's more beneficial for myself.
Yeah.
But it's going good. I really like school. When I was back in high school and middle school, I was never a fan of school. And to be honest, I'm really not a fan of school.
Yeah,
but
I understand.
I'm the type of person where I know if I want to be successful in life, it has to be done. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to for it to be done. So, and once I got into college, because everyone always has that thing where they say, oh, the transition from high school to college, you were either good at high school and then when you go to college you're bad, or you're either bad at high school but when you go to college you're really good. But for me, once I got into high school, I got straight A's, and then once I switched to college, it just kind of like I think everyone tries to freak you out about it. Oh, it's way harder than it seemed. But to be honest, I really like the way college has gone for me so far. And I honestly feel like it's no different than high school. I just feel like you have a lot more leniency than you would when you were in high school. So I really like it, and things are going really good for me right now, and I'm super excited to start I'm almost going into my second year, and time is just going by so fast, and I'll say to people all the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where has time gone? Like, some days I'll wake up and I'm like, am I supposed to go to work? Or do I have school today? I'm like, I have no clue what I just did yesterday. So it goes by pretty fast, and it's crazy because I never really believe people when they say life does go by fast. It really, really does. So you have to pay attention and live while you can, so.
No, of course, and that's really cool though. How you do it, because it can be a difficult thing, and I know I agree with you with the college thing though, because everyone's like, oh, college is so difficult, and you think you have it easy now, and I'm like, it's or you think you have it hard now. It's way easier. I loved college. It was so much better.
There's some days where I'm like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore.
Oh, of course.
But then, with everything, some days are better than others, and you just have to find ways to work yourself through it. So it just goes that way.
Rate My Professor is your best
Oh
friend.
my gosh,
So
let me tell you, that is the greatest thing ever. I'll use that before I go to my classes. It's funny because before this semester started, I looked up all my teachers on it. I was like, okay, these people have good reviews. And then I get my teachers, and they're good the first couple of weeks, and I'm like, wow, what were these people thinking? I'm like, oh, if I could go back, I'd definitely switch. But it's playing the cards. You got to find the right ones. So.
Oh yeah. But no, it's so, and you win like a bunch of stuff, and you're like placing like really, really great.
Thank you.
So do you practice like 24/7, or like how does that work? Because I can only imagine how much practice and stuff
for
it takes.
racing.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's hard to get in practice during the week. There is a couple times that I do go out and ride during the week when I have time. But other than that, I usually go, my riding day is Sunday or Saturday, but normally it's on Sunday because we go visit our horses at the ranch on Saturdays. So we go on Sundays mainly, but then when we race, sometimes it's the whole weekend. But I think that if I had more practice time and more seat time, I would become a better rider than I am right now, because you just get that comfort feeling, and you just get to that next level. Like, you'll just keep going, and you bump yourself up to that next level.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure over the summertime it will hopefully be easier and stuff.
It does. During the summer, it does get easy because I do have a lot more time, and then now that I'm older, I can drive and everything, so I can drive myself out to the tracks or anything. I can go with my brother down to California and ride the tracks, so that's something that I really want to do, is start going down there to ride, and riding with those girls down there because they're a lot faster, because that's the place to be. So.
Right. Now, like, who do you look up to? Like, do you have, like, people in the racing that, like, you really look up to, or?
Yeah, I do. I do have a few good friends that I've always looked up to. They're pro racers. One is Lauren Woods, and the other is Brandy Richards, and then the other one is Amanda Mayhew. I really have always looked up to those three, just because they've always been, to me, when I look at the top of the top, and they've always been super nice to me, and they're just really good sports with racing, and that's just who I feel like I look up to most. So
Yeah, that's cool. And I think it's always awesome too, and like your friends are involved in it, and like they're really great at it, and you can look. So that's a cool thing that you can look up to your friends and stuff. And I'm sure that's also important for racing itself, because they can give you some tips and everything too.
Yeah, especially when I go, because I see them when I go to my the series that I'm doing now. I see them and I'll go watch them, and we'll kind of talk back and forth. And this summer I'm supposed to go stay with one of them, hopefully if it works out, down in California at her house, so she can help me out with my riding a little bit.
Awesome.
So that'll be a huge benefit to me, so we'll see how that plays out.
For sure. No, that's really cool. And what would you say your ultimate goal with racing is? Or like just like everything, do you want to continue that way, or do you want to go into more marketing like you were saying, or like what is your ultimate goal with
I
that?
think my views have changed based on the knowledge that I have now with it. Back when I used to race just strictly motocross and I wasn't doing the whole half this type thing, I think because I've seen a lot of the ways that people tried to make it in the sport, and to me it just doesn't seem realistic, especially for women. So I just kind of always had that vision in my head. I'm like, no, I don't really, because they call it the race that you're supposed to get a ride from in GoPro. It's called Loretta Lynn's, and a lot of people, I've had experiences with friends that have went there and nothing has happened. They've just wasted a bunch of money to go somewhere and nothing's happened. It's basically just an experience, which is awesome. I mean, it would be really cool to go down there, but it's super expensive. So I kind of had that viewpoint. I never really wanted to go pro or anything like that, because I just didn't see it really reasonable. And now, since that industry's kind of shut, and now it's the desert industry that's kind of booming, that I've recently switched over to, I think I've kind of thought about it a little bit, because in the class that I'm in now, how it goes is there's C, which is the bottom of the barrel, it's beginner, and then there's B, which is kind of amateur, and then there's A, which is on your way to kind of pro, and then there's pro. Gotcha. So right now, I really could, to make myself a better rider, maybe next season, we're still thinking about what I should do, move myself up to A so I can just kind of charge and try to follow the girls that are up there. Yeah. But now that I've switched over to this series, I've kind of thought about it, because there's different ways that you can try to go pro, and once you go pro, you can earn money back, but it's not realistic still.
Yeah. No, I understand.
So I will always have my school in hand. That's always number one, no matter what. But just as something fun to keep going for, because I love racing, and I honestly don't know what I would do on my weekends if I did not have my dirt bike. So I've kind of thought about, maybe with the industry that I'm in now, I want to keep going and see what I can do, and see if I could actually get up to that level, because I really kind of, I think I can. I know I can do it. So I wanna try and see where I can go with it and see what happens. So
no, I really think you can, and I mean, it hasn't been done before and stuff. I think it is a realistic possibility, and I think you can go super far and stuff. And I think people are too reliant and maybe think like, oh, all my dreams are gonna come true if I do this and stuff. And as amazing as that would be, and sometimes it does happen for sure, you do have to be realistic and stuff, and keep a degree and have another type of career path idea.
Like there's a lot of, it really baffles me to think a lot of kids that I know and people around in the industry, they'll start riding early, and they have this vision in their head, oh, if I just ride all the time 24/7, I'm going to make it in the industry. I'm going to do the best that I can to get in there, and hopefully I'm going to get to the top and make a living out of it. And to me, with experiences with people and just seeing around people that live places, everyone that rides, or most people that want to go out there and make it, they will start homeschool, and then they'll do a little bit of homeschool, And then eventually they'll stop doing the homeschool and they'll become dropouts and they'll just try to be racing for their life and they don't have that backup plan. And for me, that's really, really important because what else are you going to fall back on if you don't make it? Because realistically, with the sport and the industry, you have to start out young, you have to live in California, and you have to be dedicating everything you have to it. And it's just, like I said, it's not realistic and it's not reasonable, especially if, like, for a girl to do it, it's not reasonable, so.
Yeah, well, I think hopefully with people like you especially and stuff, maybe that will start changing. And even, I gotta say, I love Disney and stuff, but that Disney movie was, like, really harsh on girls. And, like,
it was.
I was, like, kind of, like, mortified because I forgot about it completely. And then I was like, oh, wait, she's in motocross. I was like, I remember that movie. And then, like, I was looking stuff up. I was like, gosh, like, that was so horrible on girls. So,
yeah. Like I said, with it, there are some guys that take it a little bit too far because they feel like we get in the way. And for me, there's a couple girls that I know that are really dramatic about it, and they're like, oh, this guy did this, he bumped bars with me, he screamed at me at the track. Like, to me, that doesn't bother me because I know what these guys are doing. And if you're that good of a rider, you're going to make your way around. You're not going to try to do something intentional to us. Because there's been times, a couple months ago, I went down to Paula, California, to one of their tracks, and I was riding, and the guys down there are really, really fast, and I was going, and he clipped my bars, and I felt it, but I was kind of inside, I was like, dang, that's kind of cool, to be honest. Like, it doesn't affect me the way that it affects these other girls. I think just because I'm a tomboy, and some of these other girls are just, I don't know, they take it a little bit serious, they think that they're different, which is okay.
If you could hold that thought for 2 seconds, we have a caller, and I don't want to miss it because I can't put it on hold. So, caller, you are live with Corey Taylor Talks. You're talking to Darian. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for Darian. Do you find it hard being a female racing in a male-dominated sport?
Not necessarily. I mean, we are treated differently, and that's something that's really obvious in the sport. But I think that, honestly, if you have enough dedication and passion for the sport, you're going to make your way just as how they are doing it. So I think it's just the way that you think about it and the views that you have about it. And I think a lot of people get shut down to the fact that, oh, we're a girl racing in a guy's sport. But to me, I think that's pretty awesome. Like, to do something that guys can do. I mean, I think that rocks. Like, that's rad. So...
For sure.
Well, what other barriers do you come across?
What do you mean, like barriers? Like obstacles with it?
Obstacles, you get treated differently as a female.
For me, with my experience with racing, and I've been racing for about 6-7 years, I haven't came across anything that's been harsh, but I've always raced locally. I've just started to kind of branch my way out and go to different locations, but I kind of feel like maybe if I were to be located out of California and was riding there, I feel like I kind of would experience some, but with my racing, I've never experienced anything where I've felt that way, so...
Do you consider yourself a female driver or a driver?
I consider myself as a driver. I don't, just because of the way I think about it and the type of riding style that I have, because I try to be the best that I can, and every time I'm out there, I try to charge the hardest that I can, and I think there's a difference between girls that go out there just to say that they ride and just for the popularity of it, and then there's others that actually have the heart and the passion for it and the drive and want to do it. So I consider myself as one of the guys. So.
Well, that's fantastic. The only other female driver that I'm aware of is Danica Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, and especially for her to be out there doing what she's doing with all these other guys, I think that's awesome. Like, that's something that you should really be proud of. And I've just started racing. I used to race with the guys back when I did motocross, but now that I'm in the desert, to make myself better, I've actually started racing with the guys. And to be honest, I would rather race with the guys than race with the girls. Just because, I don't know, I think it's more fun with the guys. So.
Well, I wish you luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for calling. Alright, cool. Again, we're having technical difficulties with the phone, so I apologize if you're trying to call in. That's what's going on. Hopefully we'll get it figured out soon. I would like to say the telephone company that's wrong, but anyways, I can't. But yeah, so where can people follow you, get a hold of you, find out where you're racing and stuff?
I have a Facebook page. I have my personal Facebook page. It's just Darian Hickey if you type that in. And then we also have my racing page. It's mainly me, but my brother, he's on there too because he's part of the family too, and he still rides. So it is on Facebook. It's 40s Racing, and I think we've recently changed it to 40s Racing, Hickey Racing, and Photography. If you type in the 40s Racing, it'll pop up. So you could find me there on Facebook, and then I do have an Instagram. So if you type in Darian Hickey, I should pop up. And we also do have the 40s Racing page too because that's my personal racing page that my dad takes care of for me. And we do post pictures on there because my dad, he takes pictures of all the riders, so we do what we can for the rest of the community just because he likes to do that, and it's something that he looks forward to and he thinks is fun, and I honestly love it because he takes really good pictures, and who wouldn't love their dad out there taking tons of pictures of them to post? So I mean, I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, I just have Facebook and Instagram, and I do have Snapchat, but that's just kind of for my personal life. I mean, if you really want to add me on there, go for it. I mean, we'll see how it goes. So I don't have a Twitter or anything. So those are just the main two branches that I have for social media to reach me at. So.
Gotcha. Well, no, that's very cool. Everything you're doing is super awesome. You're like,
thank you.
I think it's so cool how it happens because I have to check in and I could never do this ever.
No, yeah. I try to express to a lot of girls that feel that way about me. Like I would love to, like, I'm like, oh, you should really try it, and like I love helping other people, and the other girls out there, I try to be the best sport that I can out there, and I like to go out there and support them just as how some of them support me, and I like to encourage the racing because I mean it's an awesome thing. I mean, why not try and do it? So
no, yeah, for sure. And now, do they have a lot of races here in Vegas, or is it mostly like escape places like that?
The one that we just had here was for the series, the Works Racing Series. It was at Orleans. That's the only one I've done here in Vegas. Other than Mesquite, my home track that's an hour away, and when Sandy Valley closed, they used to have one in Boulder City as well. So it's kind of a bad thing for me, and I kind of sometimes think, I'm like, man, why don't I live in California? Because I know that if I lived in California, I would become such a better rider because there's more opportunities there, and there's a lot more practice that you can get in there. But I try to do what I can with the resources that I do have, so we try to make it work the best as it can.
Yeah, well, that's all you can do, and eventually, hopefully, one day you'll be able to go out there and everything. Yeah. But at least you're trying and stuff, and you're working with what you got, which is super important. And again, that you have such a supportive family with you and everything. And I just want to say too, even if you don't have a super supportive family or something, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful or anything. It's a lot more work, but you can completely, and I really believe that, and you can be awesome like Darian. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Darian, for being on. You were so cool.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Everyone, please go follow her, check everything out, and keep up to date with all our races and everything. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you guys so much for watching. Next week, we will have Alfie Shear on with us. Now, it was a pre-recorded show because I'm actually going out to the MTV Movie Awards, so I'm super excited about that. Thank you. So it's a pre-recorded show, and I will say ahead of time we had a few technical difficulties because he called in from England, and it was on our end completely, but it was the company we're using. But so there was a few technical difficulties, but he was so sweet, and in case you don't know him by his name, he's the one that was just on Ellen and had millions and millions of hits and stuff, and He's working with Ed Sheeran, and so he's really a really amazing kid, and I'm so excited to have him on, and hopefully again we'll have him on soon. So that will be next week. And once again, please go check out everything Darian is doing, and thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, never give up, always believe, and you will achieve. Thank you, and God bless.